What's going on, Internet? I'm Christopher Peterson. You're listening to the Nerd EXP Gamecast. Each week, members of the gaming community get together, go through the top gaming headlines, and help you level up your game IQ. This week, I'm hanging out with Brooks.
Hello.
And Joey.
Hello.
Jumping straight into some of our news story this week, PlayStation Plus. We got our July games. These will be the first games that will be available to players in next Tuesday. So we are looking at Rocket League, Styx, Master of Shadows, Mousecraft, Entwined, Rain, and Geometry Wars 3. Not the strongest lineup in my opinion. There's some games in here that I've never heard of, Styx and Rain and Mousecraft. So I don't really have any comments on those. I guess give them a shot and see what they're about. Geometry Wars 3, everybody loves Geometry Wars, so I think that'd be a great game. Entwined was the E3 2014. One more, this is announced now. You guys can play it right this second.
Yeah.
And then Rocket League is Mario Kart Soccer.
Oh, word. Perfect. Why didn't it happen before?
Do you guys care about any of these games in particular?
Wow.
Yeah, Brooks, you go first. I played a couple of them, but yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not totally blown away. They look like they might be interesting, but wow. I don't know.
Yeah, I played a couple of these. I played Entwined on PS4, and reviewed it when it had come out last year, and I actually read a couple of reviews afterwards, and there's a lot that were a lot of people had similar feelings on it. It was basically the gameplay is based on just the two thumbsticks. You're controlling these two characters that are going through, like an arcade tunnel type thing, like Star Fox 64 style, like on rails. But you have to kind of go through these hoops and collect these little things. It kind of borrows an aesthetic very reminiscent of that game company type stuff, like Flower or Flow. And definitely a more tranquil type of aesthetic, but it doesn't really match the gameplay because the gameplay is really... It can get challenging, and it's also kind of frustrating sometimes. That's more subjective, but, it was weird, the paradox between... the juxtaposition between the tranquil aesthetic against the difficult gameplay. And then Rain I knew was a thing for a while ago, but that's on PS3. I won't be able to pick that up. But I don't know enough details to talk about that. But then I forget what the other one I had played, but I played a couple. Oh, and Geometry Wars is going to be great. And besides that, it didn't,
All right. Kind of losing you there a little bit. Don't know if that's more your end or my end at this point.
I can't hear them very well either.
Moving on, the second story is from Naughty Dog coming out. Nolan North specifically called out that he does know that they are working on The Last of Us 2. Everybody freaked out with this announcement. In some ways, this is the first time that Last of Us 2 is confirmed to come out. I could have sworn Neil Druckmann, the writer and kind of like executive producer and one of the figureheads of the game, did say that they were going to work on this, but I guess not. Even some of the articles mentioned that was kind of more in passing. But Last of Us was my favorite game in last generation, one of my favorite games of all time. The story itself kind of does end on a very definitive cliffhanger or kind of ending. So from that regards, I am kind of weary of them going into this again. But this is Naughty Dog. They have created a lot of games that I think are really good and exceptional. So I trust them, and I think that they'll do right by this franchise. Brooks, what about you?
Well, whether this is true or not, beyond that, my biggest concern is what is the game actually going to be about? You got to consider Joel and Ellie's story pretty much seemed complete after the Last of Us. So what are they going to do? Because I can't see them picking up from them again. Are they going to have a different story with a different set of characters trying to survive? Are they going to try to have something like you trying to rebuild the world, a la Fallout 4 or something like that? I don't know. I can't imagine what it could possibly be like. What the scenario for the game would be.
For me, without trying to go into spoilers for Last of Us, I either hope it picks up the second The Last of Us ends, and you see what happens after those credits roll, or you put Joel and Ellie in a box and you tell a story of a different group of characters in a different set of circumstances, and just kind of build upon that world and that lore that was created, and not necessarily those characters.
It could be. They could. They can also go with a prequel of sorts.
I mean, Joel.
I mean, it's an option. I mean, I can't. Like I said, I can't really see where they can go with this.
No, I mean, you're right. It's definitely possible. I hope they don't go that route, but I mean, we'll see. Regardless, I mean, Uncharted 4 is 2016. This game is 2019, maybe 2018 if you're optimistic. So I think that we have a long way before we actually see kind of what comes to fruition. Another story that came out was Halo Microtransactions. This was previously announced kind of in the E3 hubbub, but now getting just kind of some more clarity on what's going on. They're saying that it will not be pay to win, which is kind of the first feature, but it is actually going to be a little bit more than just cosmetic items. There's going to be vehicles and other gear that are coming out of these packs. And really what the Halo team is saying is that the packs that are coming out are going to be reminiscent of Call of Duty perks. So the more kills that you get, that's kind of when stuff will start to be unlocked and that you'll have access to these extra features. Go on, Brooks.
What I found, the way I see it, they're saying that depending on the type of pack you get, you have to do have certain achievements, make a certain amount of kills to unlock them. If this is the case, what's the point of putting them in there in the first place? Because wouldn't it make more sense just to unlock things by playing the game regularly?
Yeah, I think this is just, quite frankly, to kind of create that card capture aesthetic that gamers do kind of fall for. Mass Effect 3 did this. You can either earn packs with in-game currency, which you can do here in Halo, or you can buy them with real dollar currency. It's trying to scratch that gamer itch of collecting things in randomization and still getting rewards. It's not ideal, but it's not the worst pay model that we've seen.
True, but I still don't see how. I don't see how paying for these things wouldn't necessarily give you an advantage. If you already have them, all you had to do is do X amount to unlock them and then use them against players to get an advantage anyway.
No, you're right about that. I think the caveat is that you can't earn it with in-game currency, so that's kind of where it doesn't become pay to win. But yeah, I do agree with you that in kind of the whole perk system in of itself, going on a little tangent, I don't really understand. So I've killed you 5 times in a row. I'm clearly better than everybody else on your team. Oh, you're gonna give me a sonar or a more powerful weapon or something else. Then I'm even more powerful, and then I get something else, and it just and then I get a nuclear airstrike, and it just kind of builds on itself. It's kind of a weird, if you're gonna win, you keep winning, which some games actually trying to do the reverse, where maybe if you're losing, you get a power up to try and catch you up. More a la Mario Kart, where the people in the back get the better weapons as opposed to people in the front.
Maybe.
So, any other thoughts on this Halo story?
Nah, not really.
Another story that we had coming up is from Final Fantasy VII, the remake. One of the big announcements coming out of E3. The director Tetsuya Nomura, and I apologize if I mispronounced that, said that he didn't know that he was the director of the game until he saw an internal presentation where it kind of just said, "Oh, and director Tetsuya," and it's not like that's how they managed to tell him. That's just kind of how it came up. If you don't know the name, he's currently directing Kingdom Hearts 3, which is forever from now. I think Kingdom Hearts 3 will be lucky to be a 2016 game. So that means that this Final Fantasy VII Remake, I know we saw it at this E3 2015, this announcement that the director didn't know he was on the project, that's the director of Kingdom Hearts 3. My God, this sounds like a 2019, 2020 game.
To me, this whole situation sounds like typical miscommunication between developers and the suits. You got a situation, I guarantee Nomura probably wanted to work on Final Fantasy VII before Kingdom Hearts 3 was a thing. And they were probably like, the suits were probably like, no, we don't know if we want to do this or not. But after the big response to Final Fantasy VII being re-released, and all the people on social networks clamoring to see another Final Fantasy VII remake, they decided, okay, let's do this. But by then he was already working on Kingdom Hearts 3. And they decided, okay, let's go with it. And then they come and they basically tell him, okay, by the way, that idea you had a couple of years ago, yeah, we're going to go with it now. But he's already in the middle of something else.
Yeah. Oh, go on.
No, you're fine. Go for it.
No, I mean, it's really funny, that we had the whole Final Fantasy VII during the PlayStation experience that was a Trojan horse. It felt like a trick. And, I wonder how much of that kind of goodwill they decided to or that made them do this Final Fantasy VII remake. So, I mean, even the PlayStation 3, one of the first things they demoed was a Final Fantasy VII remake, kind of HDification. That nowhere near what we're seeing in this remake trailer. And that, ever since then, fans have been clamoring for this game to be remade and re-released. Other news story, Fire Emblem, the next game, Fire Emblem Fates, that is coming out, will be two distinct games. Fire Emblem's games always tell a story of war and conflict. And typically, sometimes it tells a story from one side and then sometimes maybe even the other. In the GameCube versions of Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance and then Radiant Dawn. In Radiant Dawn, you did play both sides of the conflict and then kind of came together. It sounds like in this new Fire Emblem game, you'll play as one side, and then you can also see the war unfold from the other side as well. In these games, you can buy them separately, or if you buy one, the other can be downloadable content for a campaign. Don't know the length or kind of extent of what these campaigns mean or what's going to be involved or how many hours of gameplay. So really don't know if they're screwing people over or if it is kind of a genuine, unique, they're just coming out with two games worth of content at the same time. Brooks, do you have any insight into this or thoughts?
I'm gonna be honest, this sounds a little odd. I mean, it's an interesting concept, but I can't see how this could actually work very well if you don't buy the games together, or at least have some kind of DLC option. Because if they're both going to be released as separate units, like in the stores and whatnot, I can easily see people wanting to get both and only being able to get one for X amount of time.
No, I mean, I agree with you. My hope is that with this, it is reasonably priced. That's kind of the big question mark in this whole process. Fire Emblem Fates is going to be available on the Nintendo 3DS, and it will be a $40 game. But how much is that DLC? And that's the big question.
How much is it going to be altogether? Good point.
So, any other thoughts on Fire Emblem?
That's a negative.
Have you ever played a Fire Emblem game?
Yes, actually.
And did you like it?
Yes, actually.
Yeah, I played the GameCube ones. I thought they were fantastic entries. I don't have a 3DS, so I didn't play Fire Emblem Awakening, but after everything that I've heard of it, it sounds like a great game. Another game, kind of still in the Nintendo wheelhouse, Pokemon Shuffle. This was a free-to-play game for the Nintendo 3DS that is basically a Bejeweled or a Candy Crush clone. No offense, but it's a match 3 game just with Pokemon faces. It will be getting a Android and iOS release later this year. I don't think this is what Nintendo and DNA had in mind when they were talking about releasing games. So I wouldn't necessarily say that this is going to be that DNA game that we'll see this year. But maybe this is what they referenced. They've been still being a little cagey about that. Good for Nintendo. If you're going to develop a game, bring it out on as many platforms as you possibly can. I don't know. That's about all I got on this one.
And anything that helps them move some games is fine, but I've played enough of those puzzle type games or matched games. Then the falling blocks like Tetris. I'll pass on that one.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely fair. I never got bit by the Candy Crush bug. I never even actually played it. I did play Bejeweled a lot and Bejeweled Blitz, so I got involved in that. And I saw people play Candy Crush and just get so addicted, and even be willing to toss $10-$20 to get through or get their power ups. And I was just like, that's never been an experience that I wanted to partake in. So. Another story. This is kind of interesting. Shovel Knight getting a physical release. This was a Kickstarter game that was originally released on the Wii U and 3DS, and then Max and Linux, and then found its way to PS4, PS3, Vita, Xbox One. I love Shovel Knight. This is a great game. I implore anyone who hasn't had a chance to play it to go out there and give it a go. And so they're going to do these boxed copies for $19.99, which is the same price as purchasing it. It's going to come with a full-blown instruction manual, and you'll still get access to everything that you would have if you bought the game digitally. It's just there for people to pick up. I've never heard of a game going from digital to physical, so from that perspective, it's kind of unique and interesting.
I like this idea, actually. Shovel Knight is a great game. But I'm curious to know what exactly is going to be on all these discs. Is there any particular exclusive content, like say with the Xbox version with the Battletoads?
No, that's a great question. And so far, no. There's no exclusive content, which I prefer, especially after the controversy that we saw with Destiny. But as someone who picked up this game and know people who picked it up on other consoles, I wouldn't want people who picked it up physically to get kind of an incentive over everybody else. So this way it's more equal across the board for everybody.
If that's the case, then you can't go wrong no matter what platform you pick it up on. I mean, get this game. I recommend it highly.
Yeah, you know what? One thing that kind of struck me as interesting in the article, and this was from Yacht Club Games itself, their kind of press release about it, 700,000 copies sold. I don't have like an exact finger on the pulse. They're happy with that number. That sounds high. I kind of expected this to be millions. Like everybody I know online plays the game. But I guess, it still is kind of an indie game. It's a smaller game, so it doesn't necessarily have that mainstream appeal and kind of grab you that, and maybe that's why they want it in retail stores.
Well, I think what it comes down to when you get the game is all digital. Just like you said, a lot of people, despite how popular a lot of games are, there's not very many people that want to invest in digital games. There's some. It all depends on what the game is. on a platform like PC, like these console gamers, it might not be a game people want to pick up. They just like, well, it looks like an independent game, or it isn't a shooter or something like that, and so they don't want to give it a shot. I don't know. It's weird. I don't think it cost all that much to develop, so 700,000 copies would actually be a really good return, especially if it's like 1995 to actually get the game in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean they had Kickstarter funding. They had a lot. They had to add stretch goals. It sounded like they came up with some of them on the fly. They have 3 campaigns for Plague Knight, which is coming later this year, and then Spectre Knight and King Knight as well, and coming in later. Interestingly enough, like those were voted on. I kind of missed that part of the campaign. I'm surprised. My personal favorite was Polar Knight, hands down. And I'm really surprised that those 3 are the ones. I guess like because the game hadn't actually come out, so it was just based off of how they looked graphically. Who was your favorite knight of the bunch?
I'm kind of like my favorite knight. I like the Battletoad with the big shovel, the green fist shovel.
Yeah. If you're more interested in more from Yakuza games, I did do an interview with them. David D'Angelo, one of the developers. They're all from WayForward previously. So check that out on YouTube or nerdyxp.com. Just search for Shovel Knight interview and it'll pop up.
Okay.
Really random news. Street Fighter V is going to be hitting Six Flags theme parks this month of July. As kind of a promotion. And just kind of interesting to throw out there because I feel like we're seeing more and more of these developers kind of do these not in-house, but these like on-site demos of games. Nintendo did this during their E3, and now we're seeing Capcom do this with Street Fighter V, and I mean we've seen other games partner with Best Buy, so I think go on.
I think it's a brilliant move. Actually, I'm more of a Cedar Point kind of guy, but I mean, it's not a bad idea because there's not a whole lot of arcades anymore like there used to be, and a lot of places don't demo. You don't get to go a lot of places and demo games anymore, other than maybe what is that? What is that place? GameSpot, I think it is. Gamestop, I'm sorry. That's what it is. You can go there, you can demo games there. You don't get to play a lot of arcade games anymore or demo games anymore a lot of places. And this is a good idea to get people who usually don't necessarily go to video game stores to pick up games to actually get a game in their hand and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. More than anything, I think this shows confidence that this game is going to excite people. People are going to be willing to talk about it. If they had any doubts in their mind, they wouldn't be willing to put this in players' hands necessarily. They would want more time to polish and develop it and get this in a better state before it can be demoed. So I think that this means that they feel like they're onto something and they have a good product. And that fills me with confidence. And even if I don't go to Six Flags, which I won't, and that's a complete other story. Six Flags was a terrible trash experience last time I went. But that in of itself makes me excited that it exists and it's out there. Next story. I'm not familiar with this franchise. Maybe you are, Brooks. Have you ever heard of King's Quest?
Yes, I have. Big time. King Quest is one of those. I used to play the game back when I was in the Navy, back on the crappy old IBM. King Quest is one of those games where it's an adventure game where you have to make certain choices, and if you make the wrong choice, you can go through the game and can't get so far. You have to do certain things exactly right to get all the way through the game. You have to pick up a certain item, or you have to do a certain action scene, and there's been quite a few of them.
Yeah, so from the description, everybody I know who's been interested in King's Quest seems really excited about it. And one of the main draws, like for me looking at it, is it looks like a Telltale competitor, which Telltale did a great job with marketing and kind of pushing forward the aspects of episodic storytelling, but they weren't necessarily the first to ever do it. So it's interesting to see other people willing to jump into that realm in King's Quest, which sounds like it has a rich history. It sounds like you definitely enjoyed it to get back to kind of those roots.
3.5 discs for the win.
Yeah, so I mean, like you were playing these on those old giant floppies.
Oh yeah, the 5.5s, baby.
So, will you be picking up King's Quest when it comes out?
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I haven't picked up any of the more modern versions of the King Quest games because I got more off into like the 16-bit bug kind of bit me. So I jumped all over the Super NES, NES, etc., and all my games like Space Quest, Wing Commander, they all went by the wayside. All the PC games I used to play, I stopped playing them for a while.
No, I mean that's definitely fair, especially with King's Quest and this game that's coming out later this year. The development team isn't the same one, so I mean we're looking at New Blood. They did pass the torch to the new team, so. We'll see how they do. They have their blessing, and I don't know. That's all I got. Our next story is for The Last Guardian, a game which I, quite frankly, never thought would be created, and it's being created in spite of me. It's being created for all the fans out there who kept asking, who kept emailing, who showed interest in it. Sony admits that they. And maybe this is just fan service, but I'm going to take this at face value. Sony admits that because people showed an interest in this game from its announcement till to this day, that's why they moved it. That when they started moving it from PS3 to PS4, they thought about scrapping it. It was difficult. It was hard. It was an erroneous task to code. But kind of that support and that interest is what drove them to keep pushing forward and make this game come out. So for all you who made a prediction every year that Last Guardian would be at E3, you made it happen. So Brooks, do you buy it? Do you think this is just marketing mumbo jumbo, or do you think because people kept talking about it that Sony wanted to strike on that marketing name?
I'll be honest. I want to believe it's goodwill towards the gamers out here, but I don't know. I don't really know because from what I can see, since it was so hard to develop for the PS3 because of the software hardware limitations, they tried to move to the PS4. I believe they tried to move it here to the PS4, didn't quite get it to work there either. We're going to scrap it until people decided they wanted it, and if they skip it, we might as well go with it. They might just be doing a little lip service to, make people think, yeah, we really care because we were going to get rid of it. It might be a little lip service. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll never know. So, I mean, Sony's been marketing themselves as for gamers, and they've been doing a really good job with that. So, I mean, either way, they're pushing that trend forward. Last bit of news comes from GameStop, of all places. They are looking into getting into the digital secondhand market. This already exists for PCs, but they're looking to see if they can do it with consoles, not necessarily these ones, but maybe the next. And, when you buy a game digitally, the theory is that, if I bought Batman Arkham Knight digitally, I own a virtual license of the game, and that's why I can put it on multiple PlayStations if need be, but also why I don't own the game and I can sell it to other people. So I don't know exactly how this is going to work, but I think it's just, quite frankly, GameStop clinging for hope that their business model will continue to work when the digital future finally arrives and we have to download everything.
I've never experienced the whole digital refund thing, so I can't even offer an opinion on that. How does that work anyway?
You have to go in and ask for it. Steam just instituted a refund policy for the last couple weeks ago. So if you buy a game and you spend less than 2 hours or less than 2 weeks on it, Steam will give it to you, no questions asked. They'll give you a refund. Now you can't ask for an exception. As far as Sony is concerned, I've never done it myself, but I heard that when Drive Club came out, they were looking at playtime and trophy lists. And if you had too many trophies, even though the game is broken. They want to give you a refund because they said that you obviously played it and enjoyed it enough to justify the purchase, which is kind of crap. I mean, the game is broken. You paid for a full game, even if they deliver you 80% of a game. I feel like they should still have to refund you for not meeting the promise. So and I have no idea how secondhand market is going to work on consoles, especially with Sony and Microsoft being involved in there, and Nintendo. They obviously want a cut of that, and if they're getting a cut of it, then you would think the publisher would deserve a cut of it, which is ultimately the big question for kind of the used market. Not necessarily me, but like some people blame the used markets and the rentals for THQ and the middle developer disappearing.
I don't know if I buy that, because the used market has been around since the Atari 2600s, and this is the first time it's ever really been a problem in the last 3 generations. It should have been a problem way before then if that was the case. I think it's more to do with these big companies swallowing up these little developers and exploding these budgets to get these games out yearly like they usually do, and these little guys can't really compete. You can't do a startup anymore because you don't have enough money to get started.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And that's pretty much all the news. So let's go through what we've been playing this past week. What have you been playing, Brooks?
Nothing.
Okay. I've been playing Batman Arkham Knight. I am in the process of drafting a review. I'll put that out. So if you're listening to this, that review is probably already published. Check out nerdyxp.com for that. I love Batman. The character's good, but when I say that, I mean I love playing as Batman in these games. Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, they're great. Arkham Knight carries that forward. Being Batman in stealth mode and taking on guys or jumping into a group of 30 and just tackling them, and the story and kind of the lore. Batman Arkham Knight exists outside of comic book and movie continuity, so it's not beholden to them. But it doesn't necessarily break the rules. Batman's not going around being a deranged lunatic. Even if you've only seen the movies, you'll still be able to follow the storyline. I dislike the Batmobile. When I first started the game, I was like, it's not that bad. Okay, it's kind of fun to drive around. And these tank battles are, they're a little arcadey and they're a little fun distraction. But they just kept shoving the Batmobile into every aspect of this game. I honestly think that through the main story, and if you do all the missions and do all the little collectibles, you spend about 50% of the time as Batman and 50% of the time is in the Batmobile. And it felt like sequelitis. It felt like something they needed to shove in there. I still, at the end of the day, give this game a good recommendation. If you enjoyed the other Batman Arkham games, I think that you still owe it to yourself to finish out the saga. The story is good and solid, and they take it in places that I didn't expect. They did take it in a couple places you expect, and that's a little disappointing. But there's some twists and turns along the way, and I think they did a really great job with this. Rocksteady, was, as far as I know, wasn't a developer anybody had on their radar until Batman came out and Arkham Asylum, and you can see why. They pour a lot of love and heart into this, and the tank isn't necessarily terrible. It's just too much, and it's not what you want, and it's very distracting, and it's not Batman. This tank has guns and cannons and missiles, and it just really pulls you out of the experience, and it's repetitive, and there's a couple boss battles with it that are very troublesome and the most annoying parts of the game. And I think every time I'm annoyed and frustrated with the game, I'm in a tank. When I fail a stealth mission or a combat mission, that's on me. The game gave me all the tools, and that's fine, and I didn't perform as well as I could have. But the tank missions are just monotonous and silly. So, that's my 2 cents, and I think I'm kind of on the harsh end of the spectrum. Other people I know who played it, they don't like the tank either. Nobody I know has enjoyed it, but they're at least numb to it, or, it's just a minor annoyance and an actual frustration for them. So, just take that part of color commentary what it's worth. And that's all I've been playing this past week. It's a great game. Definitely check it out if you're interested.
So I had to go through my Rolodex, find one of my friends that's got a PS4 or an Xbox One, and do a little freeloading.
Yeah, and we touched upon this last week. PC version completely broken. It's still broken. It's a real shame. I'm not going to take that into consideration for my review because it worked fine on the PS4. I didn't have any. I did have 2 glitches. They weren't game breaking by any stretch of the imagination. And this, unfortunately, in this day and age, every game has glitches. So. That's pretty much it for this week. Post E3, unfortunately, Joey had to drop off due to technical issues. But he will be back next week, I hope, and I hope that you guys will be too. If you liked what we had to say, definitely please like this show on iTunes or YouTube or Stitcher or wherever you're checking it out. If you want to hear more from us, I'm Chris Peterson. I'm NerdyXP on Twitter. You can check out nerdyxp.com for blogs on movies and games. And I also do another podcast called the NerdyXP Cinecast that usually posts every Tuesday, and that focuses on movies and television. Brooks, where can people check you out?
If you like, you can follow me on Twitter at NavyMVG, or you can come to my IGN and look for Military Veteran Gamer.
All right. Well, thank you, Joey, if you're listening. And thank you, Brooks.
You're quite welcome.
I hope that you out there enjoyed this week's episode and that we were able to help you level up your game IQ. Take care, friends.